Today we're taking a look at some trade talk around the Chicago Blackhawks. What should we expect this year with Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane? We have words from the Hawks GM giving us an idea of what to look for as the year goes on. Plus we have some unfortunate news regarding a few players whose career might be over and several more injuries and signings as training camp gets underway. All that coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to take a look at here today. First up, I want to discuss some of the NHL teams that are going to be going to Europe to kick off their NHL seasons. We know that there's going to be a series in Prague, Czech Republic, between the Nashville Predators and the San Jose Sharks. There was a report earlier today indicating that the Czech government does not welcome any Russian players. They are not welcome. And I understand their issues, obviously, with Russia after everything that's going on over there. But the problem here is that these players don't really have anything to do with that. I mean, I know we don't, some people have different opinions on this, whether or not those players support the Russian government and all that. And I really don't know where they stand, and it's not really my concern. But I will say this, the San Jose Sharks GM Mike Greer said, "We are a team, so either we all go or we don't go." So the NHL is working with the Czech government, trying to sort through this. I don't know what is going to come from it. Maybe could we see different teams? I don't know if there's really any teams without Russian players, but the only problem here is that when they do these games in Europe, they typically do it to showcase local talent that have players from that city on those teams. Like, obviously, there's some pretty interesting Czech players that play for those franchises, which is why those were the teams that were selected to go. So I don't know how this is going to be or how it's going to work out, but certainly an interesting story to follow as the NHL season kicks off. Training camps, on ice sessions today, and that's not too far into the future, so we'll have to see where this goes. But as I mentioned, where training camp was kicking off on the ice today, there is a ton of news in regards to injuries. We got more information on another signing and another potential signing as well. But like I said, unfortunately, we do have some unfortunate news that a couple of key players might have their careers coming to an end. There's another one that we pretty much can confirm is coming to an end. And I want to start with Ryan Ellis in Philadelphia. We got word today from Flyers GM Chuck Fletcher confirming that he will not play this year. They said maybe, basically it'll be a bonus, he said, if he played, but they're not expecting it. That he still has a lot of injuries that he's dealing with, and then it's not progressing. There hasn't really been any improvements. We did get to learn a little bit further about what exactly is wrong. Essentially, it's like a core muscle issue. Appears to be like a psoas tear. The psoas is a deep, long muscle. It's kind of complicated, but if you have issues with it, it can be extremely complicated and difficult to work through. And there's also issues with the adductor and hips. So I don't know. It just sounds like there's, unfortunately for Ryan Ellis, who is a real good right shot defenseman, has had a pretty solid career, has a lot of time left on his contract, which only played a handful of games for the Flyers since he was traded there. It just sounds like he hasn't made progress in so long that they do question whether or not it's career ending. Only time will tell, but it does not sound good at all. And same thing with Andrew Ladd in Arizona. I believe he's in the final year of his contract. He showed up for camp with the Coyotes, failed his physical. There was already some speculation that he may not play this year, and that just confirms it. So Andrew Ladd will not play this year. And they're not going to place him on LTIR though. The Coyotes don't need to do that. He'll be on regular injured reserve. They need his contract to actually be able to count towards their salary cap situation to make sure they're at least at the floor. That's the part of the reason why they took some of these contracts on in the first place. So he's not going to be on LTIR, but he's not going to play. It's not really going to make any difference. And obviously, if he can't pass his physical and play at his age after all he's been through, fair to say that his career has come to an end, at least actively on the ice. And the other one's an even younger player, Nolan Patrick. The Vegas Golden Knights did confirm today that the Golden Knights center iceman will not play this year in 22-23. All I've really said is upper body injury, but I think it's probably fair to say it's all connected to the migraines and concussion issues he's battled over the last number of years. The young man has just not had any luck at all. Looking back at that trade between the Flyers and the Nashville Predators, and the Vegas Golden Knights, when they sent Nolan Patrick, and then there was Cody Glass, Philippe Myers, Ryan Ellis, they're all involved here in that big 3-team trade, and it hasn't worked out for any of them. It might be the biggest, bust trade where everybody loses in quite some time. I mean, you've seen, obviously Cody Glass be involved. He hasn't materialized into the player we thought he'd be. Nolan Patrick can't stay healthy. Career might be over. Ryan Ellis has barely played. Career might be over. Philippe Myers isn't even in any of those teams anymore. He's now in Tampa. So, yeah, that was a deal that were, looked good at the time for a good deal for Philly, good deal maybe for Vegas. And it hasn't worked out at all. It's unfortunate to see these guys possibly have their careers come to an end. Now, we do have another signing today. Edmonton Oilers have finally signed Ryan McLeod. His contract's 1 year at $798,000. As I mentioned in videos the last couple times we've mentioned it, there really wasn't any issues between he and the agent and the team or anything. The only reason they held off as long as they did is they were trying to figure out the roster and how they could get, basically trying to get every dollar that they can to put to good use. And that's why his number ended up being not 800 but 798. Like, there's a reason for everything and how they're likely going to have to open up with a 20-man roster on opening night. You're probably going to see a veteran like Janmark or maybe Derek Ryan go through waivers. That's quite a possibility, and be buried in the minors if they're not claimed. That's, of course, unless the Edmonton Oilers do make a trade and unleash another contract to shed some money. But we'll see. But Ryan McLeod was at camp today, is officially signed on a 1-year deal. He'll be an RFA with arbitration rights next offseason, so it certainly won't take so long. The Montreal Canadiens had some announcements as well, and they have a slew of injuries to start the year. I cannot believe the number of players in Montreal that are starting the year injured. I mean, we got a report that Joel Edmondson, the defenseman, of course, who missed a big chunk of last year, was just named alternate captain along with Brendan Gallagher to new captain Nick Suzuki, is out indefinitely. No timetable there. Apparently, Edmondson and Suzuki had an unfortunate accidental collision at practice when they were skating the other day, and that's what caused it. Suzuki's injury, he's on this list too. Nick Suzuki is going to miss a good chunk of training camp, out for about 2 weeks. They figure and hope that he'll still be ready for opening night, but he is going to miss a fair bit of the camp stuff, so it probably won't be able to play in the preseason. I don't know if that'll impact his readiness, rustiness or anything like that to start the year. Apparently Josh Anderson and Jake Evans are also injured. They're not looking or sounding very serious, though. They are, I believe, considered day-to-day. They shouldn't be too long. Should be able to get involved with some camp stuff here in the not-too-distant future. Paul Byron is still out, still recovering. They didn't really give a firm timeline on him, just saying that he was still out. No update on Price, which is not expected to play this year, so we figure his career is probably over too, but not confirmed yet. And no update on Sean Monahan, but Monahan was on the ice, and I believe, I'm not sure if he had a no-contact jersey or not, but I know he's there and he's actually skating, which is certainly positive. At the very least, they're hopeful that he'll be ready for opening night, but not quite clear. But lots of other injuries there in Montreal. I know that there's been obviously numerous reports of them trying to shed some contracts because they have way too many forwards, and now they've got a bunch of forwards injured, so I don't know how they're going to handle that, but certainly interesting to say the least. Now another injury as well in Chicago on top of all that. Ian Mitchell, defenseman, is going to be out for about 6 weeks with a wrist injury. The Columbus Blue Jackets have hired Trevor Timmins as an assistant director of amateur scouting. I found that very interesting, somewhat surprising. In my opinion, the Jackets in recent years, at the very least, have done a really good job with their drafts, and they've picked some really good players. Trevor Timmins, of course, was the long-time member of the management team in Montreal that ran the draft for the Canadiens. And I don't know, to me, I don't think he did an overly great job. Now, there's some people out there with different opinions that it wasn't the amateur scouting team, that it was more of the people doing the development that screwed things up. Because look at, they went like a solid decade there where they were not developing and getting first-round draft picks to barely even play for them. And when they did, they didn't last long. They were not materializing. There was a lot of first-round picks that were complete bust or moved on or maybe had short-lived success. But, like, you look back, like, up until, you know, a couple of recent ones, like a Cole Caulfield, they really don't have much of anything on their roster from first-round picks for, like, quite a long stretch of time. There was a few players, obviously, that were drafted in later rounds, but they in my opinion, Montreal did a really poor drafting and developing job for, like I said, probably the better part of 10-plus years there. I mean, there's obviously a few picks that worked out that, you know, back like with Carey Price, P.K. Subban, Max Pacioretty, those guys, but really after that, there was quite a long stretch there where things were not great when it comes to drafting Montreal. So I'm really surprised to see CBJ add him when I don't really know that they really needed to do that. They could have gone a different direction. I mean, he is an assistant director, so I don't know. Odd hiring, but obviously somebody there thought he did a good job. And I guess you guys can debate in the comments, was more of the drafting issues on Timmins, or was that more of a development issue and should fall on other people's shoulders? Now, Joe Thornton, is he going to make a comeback? Is it possible that he could actually not only be a part of the Sharks organization in some capacity, but maybe even play this year? Well, according to comments from GM Mike Greer, it sounds like it's all on the table, and he basically said it's completely up to Joe. It sounds like if he wants to play, and he wants to play for San Jose, it sounds like they would take him and sign him. I mean, he basically said the door is open, it's up to him. So I don't know exactly what that means. We know that Joe has been in San Jose. He's been spotted skating. He's been spotted working out, doing all those things that you would do to prepare. Anybody that's close to Thornton that had any kind of comment basically said that no decision has been made as of yet. They also commented that they'd be open to him doing something with the organization. So, like, hard to say what's going to happen, but I do wonder if Jumbo Joe might make one last hurrah return to San Jose and play this year. It's hard to say. It may not happen, but it sounds like, according to the team, the door is open should he wish to go down that road. Now, the other trade talk I want to look at here is the Blackhawks. We know that the Blackhawks are in a big-time rebuild, and we know that top stars like Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews are very much likely, not guaranteed, but likely to be traded this year. They're both in the final year. They're matching $10.5 million contracts. And Kyle Davidson, of course, today being the first day of camp for a lot of these teams, a lot of management and coaches between yesterday and today spoke to the media, and Davidson did make some comments. Of course, he did say that he hasn't had any real conversations with teams about trades as of yet, which is what I would expect him to say. There's been reports, though, that teams have inquired with them. Doesn't mean that they really had any formal talks. You know, obviously, they're not really ready for that stage just yet. But he said basically that they haven't had real talks yet, that they're a little ways from that from happening, and that they're going to be patient through the process. And obviously, Kane and Toews made it known that they were not crazy to be a part of the rebuild process. But at the same time, they're good professionals. They're going to go through, start the season, see where things go, and that they'll kind of deal with it as the season goes along. But certainly remember, like, comments from guys like Jonathan Toews, who made it known that, Davidson said this is going to be a 5+ year rebuild. That's something he said didn't sound interesting to him at all. So I do think it's fair to say that Toews and Kane will have their time in Chicago come to an end. Based on the comments from Kyle Davidson, basically sounds like they will be having those conversations. Teams can inquire now. I'm sure that they have. There's probably some truth to those rumors that we've heard and talked about. But it's just not at a point yet where Chicago is really willing to have formal conversations and have serious talks about a potential trade. Both these guys are going to call the shots. I see comments whenever it comes up on some of the videos saying the teams can't afford them. There's no way it's going to happen. And you know what? You don't really realize how a lot of things work. Chicago can take back 50%, knock those cap hits down to around $5 million. And teams that have cap space and are able to accrue throughout the year can certainly add that late in the season. Or the other option is that they can pay an extra premium to a third team that does have cap space to retain some of that as well and knock it down further. It's possible teams could end up with Patrick Kane or Jonathan Toews on their roster for like under $3 million. We see players like that traded at the deadline all the time. So please, I hope you can all imagine and realize and understand here that these players will not be difficult to move from a cap and money perspective. It's really all going to boil down to, do they want to go? What will they waive for? And, you know, who wants to step up and make an offer that the Blackhawks are willing to consider? It's just that simple. Both these guys are going to go down to Chicago with big legacies, but it is time, I feel, for them to move on. Jonathan Toews did also make a comment saying that at first when he heard about the trades to guys like Kirby Dach and Alex DeBrincat, that he was really angry. He's since kind of settled and got used to the idea and understands where the team is going from a business perspective. Patrick Kane also said he was very disappointed in DeBrincat being traded. Obviously, he said they're very good friends, love playing together. So that was, you know, really sad news for him to hear. So it doesn't sound to me like they're really going to end up staying the whole year. They're there now. They're going to say and do all the right things. They're going to be professional. They're going to be good teammates. And then as the season goes, I have no doubt the Blackhawks are more than likely going to be near the bottom of the standings, and we're going to see these guys traded. The number of teams have been linked to them that we've reported on in the number of weeks going back, and I think a lot of that is, you know, accurate, and it could change. It's hard to say, but no matter what, I think it's fair to say, based on all the comments we heard today, that these trades are going to happen. It's just not going to be anytime soon. They're likely going to be deadline deals, and we'll see where things go as this season moves along. So let me know your thoughts on the Blackhawks, where these guys might end up, all the other injuries and all the other news from training camps today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll talk about it further. If you're new to this channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We will keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.